Just want to say hello and thank you to everybody, especially for this very, very, very important press conference that we have in front of us here at this moment. There are some important opportunities that we have that's coming before the General Assembly within this next few moments, within less than a week. That's the ability to make sure that we put transportation in the direction that it's supposed to go on. I'm thankful because I'm joined by a number of colleagues. My colleague, Senator Craig Zucker, my colleague, Senator Brooke, Delegate Brooke Lierman, and many, many advocates, many young people, many businesses. This is one of the few issues that we all came under one umbrella. Brian, I think about how labor and the environment collectively came together. I look at how young and old people came together. I look at how all of our county executives were under one umbrella. And I was just amazed that we all collectively came together for this issue to make sure that the resources that are provided for our transportation systems to arrive on time and to arrive in a manner that each and every constituent deserves to be able to do it. And this is how we move our region, our state, our city forward. And just want to say thank you for this opportunity to be able to do just that. I also want to make sure that I bring up my co-pilot at this moment, Delegate Brooke Lierman. The reality is that nothing happens by yourself. You need both chambers to get across that finish line. Unfortunately, we didn't have the governor to get across the finish line with us, but we do need our colleagues in the Maryland State Senate and the Maryland House of Delegates, and I'm proud to be standing beside Delegate Brooke Lierman.
Thank you so much, Senator McCray. Thanks for being a good friend, a good partner, and such a champion in the state Senate for Baltimore, for transit, and for working people everywhere. It's great to have Senator Zucker on as well, really demonstrating that MTA is a statewide public transit system. Now, we have workers all over the state who depend on MTA. So thank you for everybody for being here today. Just want to start by saying something that I truly believe, and that is, to so many challenges we face, reliable public transit is the answer, right? We are facing the existential threat of climate change, and we must reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. Well, we know if we move people instead of cars, right? If we create more public transit options, then we will decrease our greenhouse gas emissions, because the transportation sector is the #1 emitter of greenhouse gases in Maryland and the United States. Another challenge we face, of course, are frontline workers, our students, seniors. They face challenges to get to work, to get to school, to make sure they can access their appointments and the work that they need to do. And yet many of them cannot drive or don't have access to a car. Therefore, reliable public transit, again, is the answer. We know, we have too many people who are struggling in Maryland today. We've seen rising wage stagnation over the past decade, frankly, until this year, rising inequality. And we know that the number one contributing factor to reducing, to moving people out of poverty and into the middle class is commute time. And so we have to make sure that we're helping people reduce their commute time. That means better and more reliable public transit. And that's where the Transit Safety and Investment Act comes in. We have a phenomenal workforce at MTA, drivers who show up day in and day out to do the work that needs to be done. We need to make sure that they have the capital needs, the capital program to be able to drive the buses. They can't drive a broken bus. They can't drive a broken light rail. And we know that today in Maryland, we have some of the worst on-time rates in the country because we have the highest breakdown rates for bus, for transit, for rail, of almost any state and any comparable system in the country. So this bill, the Transit Safety and Investment Act, that we introduced this past session with all of your support, business support, transit leader support, workers, students, environmental groups, all over the state. We introduced this bill because we know we have to create a transit system that works for Marylanders. So I'm thrilled to be here today. I'm ready to override that veto, and I'm ready to make sure that people can get to work, can get to school, and that public transit works for Marylanders. And so now I'm thrilled to introduce Ivis Burris, who is a paratransit rider and an advocate with Consumers for Accessible Rider Services. And Ivis is going to speak about her firsthand experiences with breakdowns. Ivis, thank you so much for joining us today.
Good afternoon, everybody. Transit and Safety Investment Act means everything to me and to my son, who uses this service, the paratransit service, all the time. We have no other means of getting around except for mobility. Now, I'm reminded about several times, so many times, going to the bus, getting to the lift, and the lift not working, only to have to wait for another bus, and then that lift not working. You know, a lot of times my son, he's in a day program. A lot of times the bus break down. I get a phone call saying the bus is broke down. I have to wait for him to get on another vehicle. A lot of times we use paratransit to go to doctor's appointments. I have a tracheostomy. A lot of times I can't make it to my appointment on time because the bus then broke down. So many times trying to go to the market, trying to go to church. So many times after service, waiting for the mobility bus, the lift then broke down. And I remember one time we had got like around the corner from the church, and the dispatch or somebody over the line was saying how they needed somebody to assist with help. And so my driver went to assist, and they had to pull a wheelchair person off the back of the bus. And that just brought tears to my eyes, because I was like, what if that was me? What if my bus broke down, I'm on the bus, and I would deal with anxiety? And what if, sorry about that, you guys. What if that would have happened to me? How would I get off the bus safely? So please override this bill. Persons in my situation, in my son's situation, we need mobility. We have no other way of getting anywhere. And like I said, church, doctor's appointments, day programs, hanging out with friends. It's very important. Please hear my cry and answer my call. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ivis. Just thank you for putting a face. Thank you for raising your voice in reference to this important issue for so many people across our city, across our state, that need to be heard. Just thank you for this opportunity. I just wanted to make sure that folks heard what Ms. Ivis said. She said, make sure that you can get to your doctors. Make sure that you can get to the food insecurity opportunities. Make sure that you can get to be your religious institutions. This is very, very, very important. Not just, and these are real people that we're talking about. That's important. Craig, I know that we need 29 in the Senate and we need 85 in the House of Delegates. And we're hoping that they hear people such as Ms. Ivis, because there's so many Ms. Ivises across the state of Maryland. At this moment, I'd like to bring up my friend, Don Fry. The reality is that while there are Ms. Ivis, there's a Delegate Lierman, the reality is that we also, this puzzle is a big puzzle, and we have our business leaders. In order to be able to get, they have a very concerted effort, a very concerted interest, I should say, in this piece of legislation, because if workers don't get the opportunity to get to work on time, the reality is that it affects their cost of doing business. So at this moment, I'd like to bring up the president of the GBC, Don Fry.
Thank you, Senator McCray. Appreciate that very much. The Greater Baltimore Committee is pleased to be a part of this press conference and this coalition, and I speak on behalf of the business community. To ensure and support a vibrant, growing economy in a competitive business environment, it's essential that we have a healthy, well-funded and maintained highway, transit, port, airport infrastructure that provides reliable, efficient and interconnected options to move people, good, and services. The vast majority of businesses in the greater Baltimore region depend every day on a safe, efficient, reliable transportation system to ensure smooth operations and profitability. Investments in transportation infrastructure is really an investment in the future stable and growing economy. There are sectors of our workforce, has been referenced, particularly in Baltimore City, that do not own or have access to a car. These individuals absolutely depend on that reliable and affordable public transportation to get to jobs, training, schools, and even healthcare resources. In short, there's many whose paycheck and livelihood depends on reliable and affordable public transportation. And this is true in virtually every industry sector. The region's mass transit system must be constantly maintained and improved to ensure reliability, mobility, and affordable access to employment opportunities, especially for those without other transit options. As Delegate Lierman referenced earlier, we can't overemphasize the importance of reliability to this transportation network. It's tied directly to regular investments and maintenance and much needed improvements to our system. If it's unreliable or breaks down or has to be shut down for mechanical or other issues, it's disruptive to business, to employees, and to customers as a whole. Reliable, interconnected transportation systems underpin our economy, and they provide for highly attractive selling points for companies who want to establish a headquarters, a satellite office, or even expand their existing operations. And in short, it's just a key ingredient to new economic activity and job creation. A number of years ago, the Greater Baltimore Committee held a series of meetings with the state of Maryland economic development secretaries and county economic development leaders about what made a competitive business environment and was conducive for economic growth and job creation. One of the pillars that came out from that work was that they decided that we had to have a well-funded and maintained transportation infrastructure. One former secretary of economic development even stated, and I'll quote this, "The state has to keep investing in transportation. We can't take years off." And unfortunately, that's what we have seen over the past decade or more. So the Greater Baltimore Committee has consistently supported the enactment of the Transit Safety and Investment Act as a positive step to achieve that goal in the Baltimore region of remaining one of the vital economic engines of our state and ensuring that Maryland remains attractive to residents and employers. We thank our legislative leaders who have joined us today and others, as well as the advocates who are part of this coalition. And we look forward to the efforts next week to bring this legislation to fruition. So Senator and delegates, I thank you very much for including us in this presentation today.
Thank you, Don, and just thank you for your leadership. Thank you for just giving us the visual to let folks know that this coalition is very, very broad. Next, I get the unique opportunity to bring up my friend, Senator Craig Zucker. It's important to recognize that this is not a Baltimore City issue. This is not a Howard County issue. This is not an Anne Arundel County issue. This is a state of Maryland issue. And I think that collectively we can see that. You have Montgomery County with Senator Craig Zucker. But when we make that floor argument, we let folks know, Western Maryland, Eastern Shore, whatever jurisdiction that it is, this is a state issue in reference to addressing the challenges that we have with our transportation system. So thank you, Senator Zucker.
Well, thank you very much, Senator McCray. This is a great opportunity for me, to salute you and your leadership and Delegate Brooke Lierman as well. But I know Senator McCray and Delegate Lierman, you will take a step back and say, look, nothing would have been accomplished without the great advocacy from many people on this call or those individuals that are listening. When we listened to Ms. Burris, we understood that the need is now. But when we hear later from Camry Moses, we know that as elected officials, stewards of the environment, and public officials that are forward thinking, we know that we want to have infrastructure, not just for tomorrow, not just for next week, but for the next 20, 50 to 100 years. So that's why I find it ironic that when we talk about infrastructure, or when the governor talks about infrastructure, there needs to be an investment in that infrastructure. And it's not just an investment in Baltimore City, which is vital. It's just not an investment in the Baltimore County region, which is also vital. This is a statewide infrastructure investment with this legislation that was vetoed, where we're connecting different parts of the state. There's even, and in particular, the MARC train, which right now ranks 4th worst nationally. We need to make sure that we're investing in that. And this all goes toward our economic recovery. And I know, and I believe that the people on this call believe that Our infrastructure around the MARC train and transit is very bright, and it's because of the ingenuity of pieces of legislation like this. And what speaks to this even more is the fact that there is money in this legislation that would have provided assistance to those small businesses that were negatively impacted by ongoing construction, which is needed, but still small businesses are hurting in Prince George and Montgomery County around the Purple Line, which over $1 million was included in this legislation to help support those small businesses. So not only is it helping to make sure that we're creating opportunities for ridership across the state, creating the infrastructure that we need, but also supporting our small businesses, as Mr. Fry alluded to before. So this is a statewide priority, and it is important that when we talk about infrastructure, there's an investment in that infrastructure. And I just really appreciate everybody here being invested in these issues and making sure that we can continue to support the wonderful Marylanders like Ms. Burris and Ms. Moses. And with that, Senator McCray, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Senator Zucker. You cannot have a better wingman on that floor. It gets very interesting, but I'm glad that you're right here alongside each and every making sure that we can get to 29. And we have 2 in the Senate right here. We have 1 with Delegate Lierman. So at least we can get to that 85 and that 29. It's important to remember that we were at 38 when we left in the Senate chamber, but we need that 29, and 85 is a very, very, very important number. At this moment, I get the opportunity to introduce my friend, Brian O'Malley. When you look at the people that have long-standingly been working on these issues, he's been in the trenches, and he's one of the folks that I call on when I'm looking for different information to make sure that we can make those arguments and make that case point blank. So I just say, Brian, just thank you for your leadership for Central Maryland Transportation Alliance, but look forward to helping you with your help getting this across the finish line.
Hey, thank you, Senator McCray. So we heard Ms. Burris tell us about her experiences riding transit. Soon, I'm excited for you to hear from Jonathan Moore and Camry Moses to tell us how it impacts them or people they know getting to work or school when transit is unreliable. So I hope you listen to their stories and use them in your reporting. If it's helpful, we also have video footage of 2 other rider stories that we encourage you to use. You can find links to those videos in the media advisory that went out earlier, or also in the press release. I am also a transit rider like them, but my role today isn't to share my own stories. It's to share some data to complement what today's speakers are telling us. Next slide, please. We heard Senator Zucker speak about the reliability of the MDOT-MTA MARC commuter train that serves 9 counties in Maryland. According to data from the Federal Transit Administration, the MARC trains break down the 4th most frequently of any commuter train system in the country. Next slide. For bus, it's worse. The MDOT-MTA buses break down the most frequently of any of the US transit systems that the MTA says are its peers. Next slide. Here's heavy rail. When you think of heavy rail, think of the Baltimore Metro subway, or think of the WMATA Metro in DC, or MARTA in Atlanta, or the New York subway. The MDOT-MTA Metro subway breaks down more frequently than any heavy rail system in the country. And look at the chart. It's not just by a nose. Next slide. But if that, back one. Thanks. If that looks bad, this is worse. The MDOT-MTA light rail that connects BWI, downtown Baltimore, and Hunt Valley breaks down far more frequently than any light rail in the country. More frequent breakdowns than in Cleveland, San Diego, St. Louis, Dallas, or any light rail in the US. Next slide. And that means riders deal with too much uncertainty. This clipping is from 2019, when the Sun reported that light rail riders experienced service delays or disruptions on all but 1 weekday in September. Riders will tell you this happens all the time. This year, there was a planned 5-month-long track repair project that disrupted service on the light rail. It finally ended, back to normal, right? Wrong. In the 42 days after that work was completed, there were 3 instances where the MTA had to set up a bus bridge to replace downed light rail service. And separately, there were 10 other incidents of single tracking, all causing significant delays. Service disruptions are the norm on this system. Maryland's transit system urgently needs investment in repair and maintenance. Riders are tired of waiting. Next slide. So many advocates representing all kinds of organizations have come together as the Save Maryland Transit Coalition to support doing something about it. Delegate Lierman, Senator Zucker, Senator McCray, we are grateful for your leadership. And we're grateful for the majorities of your colleagues in both chambers of the legislature who voted for the Transit Safety and Investment Act. We're eagerly awaiting the veto override and seeing it become law. Thanks.
And thank you, Brian. Just thank you for your leadership, and thank you, as stated, for helping us to get this across the finish line. I like to speak it into existence. So getting this across the finish line from that standpoint. Now I have the unique opportunity. You heard it from Don, but you get to hear it again. You get to hear from a business owner, a small business owner that makes sure that, like, as stated, this coalition is so broad. Transportation affects so many people. Ms. Avis gave us a real face. This is our young people. This is our older folks, our senior folks. This is our workers. This is our employers. This is all of our county executives. This is a broad coalition coming together. I'm proud, proud, proud. And thank you, Mr. Moore, just because it's risky taking the business. But the reality is that we need folks to get there on time so that you can have the best opportunity to conduct your business in a manner that it deserves. So, Mr. Moore, with further ado.
Thank you, Senator McCray. This has been a struggle with on time because the majority of individuals who work for us actually take public transportation. And we have to bring this into the interview process when we're onboarding new individuals, because we have to ask at the end of an interview, how long does it take you to get to one location? And if it's more 2 bus routes or more, it becomes difficult to onboard that individual, because at this moment we have a person that's working for us right now. They have to walk a half a mile to the bus stop and take 3 buses to get to south of Baltimore, where we're currently building. And we calculated time. His time on round trip is between 25 to 27 hours a week, just in transportation. And it shouldn't be that way. And when it starts to rain or it starts to snow, then we know that certain people that have to take 2 buses are going to be late. So not only does it delay productivity, but that causes a lot of workplace stress, because as our employees, we can't pay them for being on the bus if they're not working. And so we have to find ways to readjust their schedule for people that are committed to showing up, to meet them in good faith that we can, there are other things that we can do so you can get hours, so that way you can meet your goals, because we hire a lot of African American and brown young men, and their goals are home ownership. And it's tough to be able to achieve your goal of home ownership if you're spending close to half your work life on the bus that you're not getting paid. And so we need to find more efficient ways so transportation doesn't become the barrier to employment, where individuals can actually pursue their dreams to hit their goals without another stressor getting in the way of keeping them on the hamster wheel. I'd like to say thank you for allowing me to be on the coalition. Thank you, Delegate. Thank you, Senator. And thank you, Brian, for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. And it's important to note that, we have been lifting this up for a significant amount of time. And Brooke, I've seen large employers, I've seen small employers, I've seen medium-sized employers. They are collectively coming together that says that transportation impacts the cost of doing business. And we could be moving a great economy if we make sure we invest in our respective transit. Right now, I get the opportunity to introduce Camry Moses. And Camry is one of our brilliant young students in our Baltimore region. It brings me joy to my heart. I know that all the parents at this moment is thinking like, we want our own little Camry. So I'm hoping that my Kennedy and Reagan or rise in the same position that you do, but just a little bit about Cameron. She's a graduate of Western, so 2021. She was not only a graduate, but she was the class president, Craig, the class president of her year. And then she's also in the National Honor Society, NHS, for those that have it. So Cameron Reagan was in National Honor Society when she was in 6th grade, and Kennedy was there when she was in 8th grade. I'm hoping that she continues the same type of legacy as you're doing at this moment. And right now, Cameron is actually at Spelman College and majoring in psychology, and so proud of Camry. But the reality is that Camry has done everything that she's supposed to do. She is one of our bright stars, our shining stars, and making sure that she has got the education, and not just got the education, exceeded getting the education and leading by example for other young people. So I love to hear about Camry and her experiences, but realizing that we're not doing this, Don, for us right now. We're thinking about our children. We're thinking about our grandchildren when we're talking about the investment in the public transportation system across the state of Maryland. Cameron.
Good afternoon, everyone. I noticed everyone was pretty serious before I came on here, so I just want to say we will make the change that we want to see as far as transit, because I know everyone was just having like a straight face, but come on, get the energy up in here. But I'm gonna go ahead and give y'all my spiel. Like he said, my name is Camry Moses. Often I go by Cam. I am a proud graduate from Western High School, and I attend the Spelman College. I use public transit to get to school all throughout high school and in middle school. And in high school, I caught the 38 bus. They changed things around, so it may be something different now, but I caught the 38 bus most mornings around 7:05. And it also was one at 7:10, which mean I had to get up around 6:30. If I missed either one of those buses, I basically was done for, because it would be a long wait until the next one, or I would have to change my commute to a different way. My commute from Emerson Village to Western took about an hour on a good day, and sometimes the bus was late or it didn't show up at all. When that happened, I had to take the blue bus downtown, which I was pretty unfamiliar with, catching that downtown to the light rail, and that took a long time as well. So just thinking about the process that it took to get to school, and before you even have to get to school, thinking about the mindset that a youth may be in before getting to school. When the bus was late or didn't show up, it was a domino effect. So I'd be late to school, but then I missed the warm up. So that would be like the starting assignment when school started. Then I would get after school detention for being late, which meant I missed the 38 bus home. I told you the 38 was a limited bus, so it would probably be one or two, and then that would be it. So I had to find another way home, and it was pretty stressful, but I'm not the only youth that has faced this. Other youth in Baltimore have faced this as well. And Baltimore City public school students, we already have enough roadblocks getting in the way of getting a good education. I am fortunate enough to attend Spelman, but those roadblocks in education could be critical for other youth that are in Baltimore City. The last thing we need to worry about is transportation. So if your bus is late, worrying about what your teachers are going to say, what assignments you're going to miss, how you're going to get home if you get detention, and just being drained before the day even starts. So thinking about that mindset thing. I know I said I'm a psychology major, so I'm heavy on mindset, and your mind just being messed up before you even get to school. So now you're off track from the education that you need to get when you get to school. Baltimore City public school students need to devote every minute to their education. We don't need transportation to be another barrier we have to jump over, as there are already tons of barriers that we're already jumping over with attending public schools. And I feel like a lot of people are supposed to be representing us every day, and the everyday people aren't representing us. So has Governor Hogan ever ridden a bus? He's never had to rely on a bus to get to school as other youth have, and he needs to put in more effort to understand what students in Baltimore City are facing and practicing empathy. That's a big skill that everyone needs, but practicing empathy to actually understand the positions that we're put in before we get to school, and thinking about how big, this bill would make an impact on students such as those in Baltimore City public schools. So please pass this bill to make us get easier access to education without having too much hassle.
Thank you so much, Camry. You're totally right. Everything you said was spot on, and really appreciate you bringing that perspective. It's tough to be a student these days, and there's a lot of demands placed on you, and the last thing that you should have to worry about is how to get to school. And so really appreciate you driving that point home. And it's true in so many ways. We want people to work. We want employers to locate and stay in Maryland, and we want kids to be able to get to school safely. And yet we are running a public transit system that doesn't allow for that to happen. So thank you so much, Camry, for raising that issue up, and congratulations on all your work. We're excited to see how things go at Spelman. So thank you all for joining. We are now happy to open it up to Q&A. Please, if you could write your question in the chat, or if you want to let us know if you're a reporter and where you work, I am happy to recognize you so that you can ask your question. So we'll open it up now. I see one coming. We'll give you a few moments to write your questions in the chat. I saw Jordan starting to write one. Okay, yes. Jordan asked, it appears that a lot of this bill has to do with Baltimore. Can you outline some of the items in the DC region? Thanks, Jordan. I'm happy to take that, and I'm sure Brian and Senator Zucker or Senator McCray and others would be happy to as well. So the MTA is a statewide public transit system, meaning it operates, public transit all over the state. It certainly operates a local bus system in Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Anne Arundel, but it also operates the MARC system, which of course is Frederick, the Brunswick line into DC, the MARC system, the Penn line, and the Camden line. So many, many people in Montgomery County and Prince George's County rely on MARC service. And that MARC service is interrupted on an hourly basis because of older trains, because of track issues. One thing to note right now is that there's no place for trains on the Penn line to change tracks, to repair them and to work on them outside of DC. So the MTA would love to build better facilities in different tracks so that, if there's a train that's stopped and needs to be repaired up in Baltimore, they don't have to drive it all the way down to DC, change tracks and drive it all the way back up. But they haven't had the money to be able to do that. So there's a number of pieces. And in fact, actually, it's the rail that accounts for many of the capital needs that are outlined in the capital needs inventory. So this bill is based on a full unconstrained capital needs assessment that MDOT MTA published in the summer of 2019. That capital needs inventory lists all of the capital needs that MTA has simply to maintain a state of good repair. And many of those needs have to do with rail, because if you're looking at how transit works, there's more operating costs for buses than for rail. So definitely this is a huge issue for people who live in the DC region as well as who live in Baltimore, because so many people do rely on MARC. And MTA is truly a statewide transit system. It funds or provides services in every county of the state. I'll kick it over to anybody else. I should also say there's also funding for businesses affected by purple line closures in this bill. So Delegate Wilkins has been a champion, as well as Senator Zucker and others, on to make sure that we provide funding to businesses who've been adversely affected by the purple line, by building the purple line. And this bill provides funding for those businesses. I'll kick it over to everyone else. Other answers? Okay.
Hey, Delegate Lierman, I'll just say I put in the chat the link to the capital needs inventory that you referenced. And if you turn to page 34 of that document, you can see a prioritized list of projects with examples from different parts of the state.
Thank you for that, Brian. Other answers?
And the only other thing I'd highlight, Delegate, is that it's not only, so you're focusing on the Montgomery County, Prince George's County region, as you spoke about the investment in the MARC train, when you spoke about the support work, the small business relief we're giving for those that are impacted by the Purple Line, but also you're also talking about expanding the MARC out to Western Maryland as well.
That's right. That's right. That is in this bill. And this bill passed with bipartisan support. So let's see. If there's folks who would like to ask a question verbally or orally, you are welcome to unmute. Let us know. Any other questions?
There's a question in the Q&A from Joe
Yes,
McCord.
sorry. Joe McCord. This bill passed with veto-proof majority. Are you afraid you're losing votes? So we are confident in our ability to override the governor's veto. We do believe that we will be able to override the veto, but until the votes are counted, you never know. So we just want to emphasize how important it is, how important this bill is to Marylanders everywhere, to Maryland, to adults, to students, and to our businesses and our business owners and employers around the state. Any other thoughts on that, Senator, or either senator?
Yep, I just want to reemphasize that when you take your foot off the gas, people think that it's okay. So it is very, very important to make sure that it's lifted. While the governor disagrees, we want to make sure that our colleagues know that this is still a very important issue. We need their help in order to get this issue across the finish line. This was a football analogy. We're right there on the 5-yard line. We're very, very close. It's 2 minutes to go, and we're trying to score the touchdown. Help us to get this ball across the field. And we have a very broad coalition. The reality is that we need everyone to help us to move this there. This does not happen without a Miss Ives. This does not happen without a Camry. This does not happen without a Don, a Brooke, a Craig Zucker. Like, we need everyone moving in the same direction so that we can affect generational change, not just today change, is what I would lean in on. The question Miss Ann Wilson said, this is an easy one, Miss Ann. She said, what can individuals do to help make this veto get across the finish line? I would ask that you do reach out to your delegates, do reach out to your senator. At the moment, I look at each and every email that comes across my desk. I really take in consideration the ones that's not generated while I look at those too. But when folks send genuine emails, I think that I have a responsibility to send a genuine response right back and let them know, yes, I do believe that I'm in support of overriding this veto, and make sure that it's clear that you're getting that from your senator and your delegates is what you could do the same.
Absolutely. And I think Floyd Hartley had something to ask. That hand is raised. Go for it, Floyd.
Yes, I'd like to ask, I know a lot of business owners and small businesses have been involved in this investment act. I'd like to know, and I know the hospitals are they're big employers. So how do hospitals, have you reached out to them, or are they a part of this investment act? Because like I said, they are
Yep.
kind of like the hub of the city. They
Yep.
employ many, many people. So I would think that they would be a source of being involved with this also.
Yeah, that is a great and important point. 40% of frontline workers and hospital staff use public transit, a huge percentage. And so I think it's really important to emphasize that. And yes, we have had great support, understanding that they are major employers and that many of their employees use and rely on public transit. Many of our hospital executives have come out in support of this, either through the GBC or personally, independently on their own, submitting written testimony in support of this effort, because of course they are major employers in the state. So that's a great point. I really appreciate it. And I'm happy to tell you that yes, they recognize as well just how truly important public transit is.
Delegate Lierman, I'll just jump in and add that the Maryland Hospitals Association provided written support for this bill during the session.
Yes, which was great.
Thank you.
Well, it looks like that's all the questions that we have. I want to thank everybody for being on here today. Thank you so much, Camry. Thank you, Brian, Ivis, to my Senate colleagues, Senator Zucker and Senator McCray, who worked so hard to make sure that this got out of the Senate with bipartisan support. And it's really exciting. You know, we've come so far. Thank you to all the advocates for the work that you've done. We would not be here without you. Thanks everybody for being here. This is essential government services. This is essential service to make our economy work, to make our school systems work, and to ensure that we are building a state where everybody can reach his or her full potential. So really pleased to be here with all of you today. Excited to keep pushing on transit to make sure that Maryland has the best transit system in the state, serving the people of Maryland. So thank you all so much for being here today. See you next week in Annapolis.
We're going to share some videos at the end of transit riders sharing their experiences. So if you want to stay tuned, we'll play it right now.
I get done with work and I walk all the way down to the light rail. Sometimes I get lucky and the light rail shows up in 10 minutes and other times it doesn't. I'll take the light rail, ride that all the way down to Camden Yards, get off, and I'll walk all the way to Charles Station. And from there, I'll get on the Owings Mills subway and I ride all the way to Oak Court. Maybe I can get lucky, see if the bus is there, and if not, I wait for the 37 bus. It's another maybe 3 or 5 minute walk home. It can take from anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on if the bus is there on time, if I have to wait for it, if I'm on the subway and can stop in the middle of the tracks. If they pass that funding, it will help a lot of people who need it, who deserve it.
I've been taking the subway since it was more reliable. I choose public transit for a couple reasons. One, I think it's the right thing to do. It's right for the environment. It's right for traffic. It's right for my stress. It really should be a no-brainer. Breakdowns are really hard to predict. The subway cars are over their useful life. I've been told by one of the operators that parts are no longer available. And he said to me at the time, we're not allowed to fix anything till it breaks. We're riding in the original subway cars. The mechanisms are past their useful life. They should have been replaced years ago. We need to come up with funding to catch them up and then funding each and every year to keep them running. There should be no other way you would want to come to the city.
All right, those two videos are linked in the press release and also in the media advisory. Thanks so much, everyone, for your attention, and we look forward to good news coming soon from the General Assembly. That concludes the press conference.